50,000 miles. Hey everybody, welcome back. So, I've tipped over 50,000 miles today, and I wanted to give you guys the pluses and minuses and observations of owning this car, and the problems and whatnot that I've had with it over that duration. So I bought this car in May of 2018, so had it for whatever that would be now, 15, 16 months, whatever that is. And so in that duration of time, I've had the charge port door. I had an error on the screen, and that the charge port door still worked just fine, and it occurred after going through a car wash. I'd since found out that the charge port doors had a water seal issue or something, and moisture would get in there, so they sent out a mobile servicer to replace that in my driveway, but the car always functioned fine. I had a little icon that came up on the screen that it was an issue, so I had that done. Let's see here, I've been hit twice. Was hit right rear corner, and then when the car was parked, it was backed into in the front. Both those were repaired through the insurance companies of each person that had run into me. I had a nick in the windshield fixed. I had a nick in the glass roof fixed. And yes, if the glass company is at all reasonable, they will fix a nick in the glass roof. I've had a bunch of people tell me that they won't. The glass guy that came out said the glass roof is just a windshield on the roof. He said it's the exact technology. It's just a windshield on the roof. So they fixed a nick on that. Let's see here. That's it. So, I've replaced the tires, but so you'll notice that all of the issues I've had with the car, only the charge port door had anything to do with Tesla, and that was a known issue on the early cars. My car is VIN 9300 and something, so relatively early car, and the early cars were known to have charge port door water leaks, and you'd get an error would come up. But the car was still usable. All the other issues were just normal owning a car type of issues. So essentially this thing's been pretty much problem free. I mean, again, the charge port door, the car was still usable, so that was a moot point there. And in the 50,000 miles of owning this car, I can tell you that everything still feels nice and tight, and the car is firmly planted. There's none of that I'm getting worn out, sloppy feel that you would normally begin to feel in a car at about this number of miles. I've taken it out of state numerous times. I'm about to go out of state with the car again. Use up some of those nearly 80,000 free supercharging miles I have from the referral program. But the car has been wonderful. And I would say that the only real negatives to owning this thing have been, I would say, negatives related to positives. And what do I mean by that? Well, one of the negatives to it is it's difficult to go anywhere with the car without being sort of stuck talking to people and getting trapped into conversations or whatever. And so it's and that's not a negative. It's just something with owning the car. And I know that people in California don't have that same issue because Teslas are a whole lot more common out that way. But here in Northern Illinois, though I see Teslas every day, they're still considered a little bit unusual. And I would say probably 3 or 4 times a day I'm asked about my car. Now that's primarily because I use it for service work. I do appliance repair, and I pull into someone's driveway. They look out the door, kind of frowning. Well, who is that? I get to the door, and they go, "I was expecting a truck." And then I usually respond with some smart comment like, "Well, I was expecting gas to be cheaper." And but I have found that there is still a mindset that Teslas are $100,000 cars. The general public still doesn't seem to realize that even this thing, as a relatively expensive Model 3, was $55,000. That's half what most people think a Tesla costs. So I have to let them know, oh, I drive it over 40,000 miles a year, and therefore the gas savings really does affect much of the cost of the car. And they go, how much does it, what did the car cost? Oh, it was 55 grand. Oh, well, I thought it was 100. I still get that on a pretty regular basis. I had one this morning. In 50,000 miles of ownership, I have gotten super comfortable with this car. However, I am still acutely aware of the fact that it is a very different experience from other cars. And I have that just because of the fact that we still own 3 gas cars. And I get in those cars and drive them, and I'm used to them. But even a relatively advanced gas car, for instance, we have a 2019 BMW, real nice car. It's all-wheel drive, X-Drive car. It's an M240, so it's a performance car, convertible, great car. But even that car, as new and advanced as it is, this is a better car. This is a more advanced car. You get spoiled by the silence. And yes, I like the sound of an engine, but a lot of that is just nostalgia. You get used to the silence of an electric car. You get used to the instant torque, the fact that the transmission doesn't shift gears and all of that. And so it's, in the time that I've owned and driven this car, I found that at the end of a long day, I average anywhere from 140 to 200 miles a day. I've had a few days that were 230 miles. So 160 to 165 would be a very, very typical day for me in number of miles driven. At the end of the day, I am in no way tired of driving the car at all. I've taken the car on numerous out-of-state trips. My wife and I are about to go on a trip that's 425 miles each way, and up to visit family in Minnesota. And we've taken that 400 plus mile trip numerous times in this car, and I gotta tell you, every time we take it in a gas car, I get there and I'm like, oh, I'm road weary, and maybe we've switched drivers a couple times because you just get sick of it. The drone of the engine and staring out the windshield. I take that trip in this car and it's not a problem at all. I get out of the car, I feel refreshed. Now, admittedly, part of that is when you stop to charge, it takes longer than gassing up. And so you're out of the car long enough to charge, say 20 minutes or so to charge the car. That's long enough that you are going to feel somewhat refreshed after that. But the biggest factor, 2 things. 1, the serenity of the smoothness of the car. And 2, autopilot. Oh my gosh, autopilot is just awesome, especially on the expressway, which is really what it was designed for. So I love that side of it. I love the fact that I've saved so much in gas. Now, the purchase price of the car was high, so I get that. But I love the open cockpit, and lowering the screen down as I've done has added to that open feel. I've got a custom steering wheel being made. The top is cut, and that will lower the look and just open up the cockpit even further. I really like the openness of the car. I love all of the glass roof, and the relatively low sill height compared to some of the other cars that are out there. It's a wonderful experience. The seats are comfortable. The car's reliable. I have no panel gap or panel alignment issues that you keep hearing about. And again, this is a relatively early car, and I don't have any of those issues. So absolutely in love with the car. And at this point, I can't imagine life without a Tesla. And part of that's just familiarity. And when I was using my Ford C-Max hybrid for service work, part of me kind of felt that way about that car as well, that couldn't imagine life without it. But after a couple 100,000 miles, I was glad to get out of it and get into this car. And that car began to wear out, and I know that eventually I'll be needing wheel bearings. I mean, there's just certain things that EVs are going to wear out just as rapidly as gas cars, but a lot of the normal things, like I would say brakes is one. I would have needed to have done brakes on a normal car by now, probably a couple times. Obviously, you know, oil changes. I mean, there are a lot of things that are not an issue when you own an EV. So absolutely thrilled with the car, and I'm going to keep on plugging away. I want to see how many miles I could put on this car. I've had people ask me if I'm going to trade it in on a Performance 3. I have considered it, admittedly, and but this car has a better efficiency than a Performance 3, and range matters to me. The fact that I'm almost always driving with the car full of stuff, greater acceleration is just going to make all of my equipment for my business move around in the car, and I don't know. So I would love a Performance 3 as a personal car, but I can't afford a second Tesla, and you know, we just bought our convertible in that, so that's kind of a future thing. Plus, I've got a discount for the Roadster coming up, so hopefully that will be our performance car in our future. But you know, there's really nothing earth-shattering to share with you guys about having this thing for 50,000 miles, other than it has literally been life-changing. I live my life differently because of owning this car, and it sounds like an extreme statement, but it's really not. You know, when I take one of the other cars to the gas station, it feels so foreign, and it's shocking. You know, $45 to fill it up. You know, I mean, it's only a few dollars to charge the Tesla. Holy cow! You know, so all of those things just, you know, you get spoiled. I'll word it that way. I feel spoiled in this car, and you know, we live in a first world country, so it's really a first world phenomenon to encounter. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll be doing a relatively comprehensive update video on my lowered and tilted back screen. For those of you that haven't watched that video, that just tuned in for my 50,000 mile video, go back and watch it. I've lowered the screen 2.5 inches, tipped it back a few degrees. I'm absolutely in love with the position of the screen, and it is going into this kit is going into production. So I'll give a full update on that, and I'll begin taking orders shortly. So thanks a lot, guys. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.